Jake stood by the control panel, his eyes scanning the screen. The outpost was quiet, too quiet. He had been stationed here for months, a small base on the edge of human space. It wasn't a dangerous assignment, just routine. Keep an eye on things, report anything unusual, and keep the peace. But something felt different today. There was a strange buzz in the air, an unfamiliar tension that Jake couldn't shake off. He looked out of the observation window. The dark expanse of space stretched out before him, endless and cold. Then, without warning, the alarms blared. Incoming ship, the automated voice announced. Jake jumped to his feet, his heart racing. An unknown ship. They didn't get many visitors out here. He quickly ran to the communications desk. Inputting the codes to establish contact, the screen flickered, and a moment later, an image appeared. It was a woman. Or at least, that's what she looked like. She had pale, almost translucent skin, dark hair that fell like silk around her shoulders, and piercing eyes that seemed to look right through him. She was beautiful. But there was something else about her, something that made Jake feel uneasy. It wasn't just her appearance. It was her presence. Her eyes seemed to mock him, as if she already knew everything about him, everything about humanity. Human, she spoke, her voice smooth but laced with an arrogance that sent a chill down Jake's spine. I am Zira, of the Zalanar. You may call me your superior. Jake frowned, surprised by her words. Superior? He hadn't heard of the Zalanor, and he knew most of the major alien species by name. This one was new. Yes, she continued, her lips curling into a faint smile. Your kind is well amusing. I play with humans like you. She tilted her head slightly, eyes never leaving his. It's always fun to see how easily you fall. Jake's hands clenched at his sides. She was dismissing him like he was nothing. He wasn't some toy to be played with. He was a soldier, trained to protect humanity, and if she thought she could walk in here and belittle him, she had another thing coming. What do you want? Jake asked, trying to keep his voice steady though. The anger was rising within him. Zira's smile deepened, a look of pure amusement on her face. We need something human, a small test. A demonstration of your species' abilities. Her gaze flicked to the side, and Jake noticed her crew in the background, standing silently. Jake's jaw tightened. A test. He wasn't going to back down. What kind of test? He asked. Simple, she replied, her voice almost playful. A challenge of skill, strength, intelligence. Pick one. I'll let you choose. Jake hesitated. He had no idea what she had in mind, but if there was one thing he knew, it was that humans had a tendency to surprise people. There was a creativity. To them, a spark that most aliens underestimated. He took a deep breath, making his decision. Let's do a game of wits. Zira raised an eyebrow. Wits? She repeated, as if the idea were absurd. You really believe you can beat me? Jake squared his shoulders. I'm not your average human, he said. See if you can handle this challenge. Zira laughed softly, a sound that sent a shiver down Jake's spine. Very well. Prepare to lose. Before Jake could respond, she gestured to her crew, and a table appeared in the center of the room. On it were several strange objects, some alien in design, others looking strangely familiar. Zira waved her hand, and a holographic display popped up, showing a grid-like game board. Here's the challenge, she said, her voice calm, collected. A game of strategy. We'll move these pieces across the board. Each piece represents something different. Speed, intellect, you must outmaneuver me. If you win, I'll leave. If I win, I take what I want. Jake's eyes flicked to the game pieces. He knew the rules weren't just about the pieces themselves. It was about reading the opponent, predicting moves, and using whatever knowledge you had to win. He could do this. He had to. Ready when you are, Jake said, his voice more confident than he felt. Zira's smile widened. Let's begin. The game started. At first it seemed simple enough. Jake moved his pieces with precision, slowly adapting to the alien nature of the game. Zira, however, was a force to be reckoned with. She moved quickly, effortlessly, predicting Jake's every move. But Jake wasn't just playing by the rules. He began to change things up, using strategies that no one could predict. He pushed boundaries, making moves that seemed completely illogically yet they worked. Zira's confidence began to falter. For the first time, she hesitated. Jake's mind raced, analyzing every move Zira made. It was as though he could see the game in ways she couldn't. She had underestimated him. She thought humans were predictable, easy to manipulate, but Jake was proving her wrong, and then it happened. With a final unexpected move, Jake trapped Zira's last piece. He had won. Zira froze. For a moment, there was complete silence. The room seemed to hold its breath. Zira's eyes widened, staring at the game board, unable to comprehend what had just happened. The smile she had worn so confidently was gone, replaced by an expression of shock. She tried to move, but her body wouldn't obey. Jake watched in disbelief as the powerful, confident alien woman who had mocked him was now completely still, like a statue. Her crew stood around her, just as confused, unsure of what had occurred. It was only then that Jake realized something had shifted, something much bigger than a simple game. Zira wasn't just frozen in shock, she was frozen in place, and the feeling that something far greater than either of them was at play settled. Over him, this was only the beginning. Jake stood frozen, staring at Zira. The alien woman had just been defeated at her own game, something that seemed impossible, and now she was standing there, motionless. Her once confident and mocking expression had vanished, replaced by a blank, frozen stare. The room was eerily silent. Zira's crew, who had been standing in the background, began to murmur, exchanging confused looks. They had never seen anything like this before. One of the crew members, a tall figure with dark skin and sharp features, stepped forward and placed a hand on Zira's shoulder. He tried to shake her, but she didn't move. Jake could hear his own heartbeat in his ears, thumping loudly in the quiet room. He wasn't sure what had just happened, but something was clearly wrong. Zira was more than just an alien species. She was a leader, an important figure, and her sudden freeze wasn't something Jake could explain. "Zira," Jake called out, though he wasn't sure if she could hear him. There was no response. He glanced at her crew, who looked just as unsure and afraid as he felt. "What did you do to her?" the tall crew member asked, his voice sharp and demanding. He was clearly frustrated, his eyes narrowing as he turned to Jake. "I don't know," Jake replied, holding his hands up in defense. She froze on her own." The alien crew member gave Jake a hard look, but didn't respond. He turned back to Zira, his hands still resting on her shoulder. "We need to get her back to the ship," he said, his voice low. "She can't stay." Like this, another crew member, a shorter alien with blue skin, stepped up and examined Zira closely. "Her neural functions are offline. This is impossible."
Oh.
Jake's confusion only deepened. He had no idea what these aliens were talking about, but it was clear that whatever had happened to Zira wasn't something that should have happened. And it was clear that it was his fault. Somehow his victory had triggered something in Zira's biology or technology, and now she was frozen, unable to move or speak. "Maybe it's a glitch," the blue-skinned alien said, shaking his head. "But this shouldn't be happening. No one has ever done this to a Zalanor before." Jake felt a chill run through him. The way they spoke about Zara's race made it sound like they were untouchable, powerful beings who could never be defeated, let alone frozen in place by a human. He had only made a move in a game, but somehow it seemed like he had done something far more significant. "What happens now?" Jake asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "We'll figure this out," the blue-skinned alien said, his voice tense. "You need to leave. This is above your pay grade." Jake took a step back. He didn't want to leave Zira like this, but what else could he do? He wasn't a scientist or a doctor, he was just a soldier. A soldier who had just defeated a being far more advanced than any human he'd ever met. As Jake turned to leave, he noticed something strange. The walls of the room seemed to ripple, like the air itself was distorting. He froze in place, his eyes wide. He wasn't imagining it. Something was definitely happening. The blue-skinned alien turned sharply, his eyes widening in alarm. "What's going on?" he demanded. "This shouldn't be happening." Before Jake could ask what he meant, the room began to shake. The walls quivered, and the lights flickered. Then, with a sudden burst of energy, the entire room seemed to freeze. The air around them turned cold, and everything became still. It was as if time itself had slowed down. Jake looked around in a daze, unsure of what was going on. Suddenly, a voice filled the room, a voice that wasn't Xeris or any of her crew. It was deep and powerful, echoing through every corner of the room as if it was coming from the very air itself. "You have done something you do not understand," the voice boomed. "The balance has shifted. Humanity's role has been awakened." Jake's heart raced. He looked around trying to locate the source of the voice, but there was no one there. The voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "What does that mean?" Jake asked, his voice trembling. The blue-skinned alien stepped forward, his expression fearful. "It's the power of your species," he muttered. "We were warned long ago, but we never believed it. Now it's happening." The walls of the room seemed to shimmer again, and Jake felt a strange pull in his chest. It was as if something deep within him was being awakened, something primal and powerful. He looked down at his hands, suddenly aware of how insignificant he had always thought he was, but now he felt different, stronger. "You've tapped into it, human," the voice continued, its tone much calmer now. "You've disrupted the balance that has been in place for millennia. Zero and her people thought they were the apex of existence. They were wrong. It is time for the truth to be known." Jake didn't fully understand what was happening, but he felt it. He felt like he was standing on the edge of something massive, something that could change the universe itself. He glanced over at Zira, still frozen in place, and wondered what the future held. His victory in the game had triggered something far bigger than a simple challenge. The voice continued, its words slow and deliberate. "Humanity is not what they think. Your race holds the key to what the universe needs. But it is up to you to decide whether you will rise or fall." Jake swallowed hard. He wasn't sure how to respond, what he should do next, but deep down, he knew this wasn't just about him anymore. It was about humanity as a whole, and the role they would play in a galaxy that had underestimated them. The shaking stopped, and the room fell silent once more. Zira's crew stood motionless, just as confused and frightened as Jake. But as the room returned to normal, one thing was clear. This was only the... Jake stood in the now quiet room, his thoughts racing. The voice that had filled the space had left him shaken, unsure of what to make of its message. The alien crew stood still, not speaking, not even moving. Zero remained frozen, her body locked, in place like a statue. He wanted to do something, anything, but what could he do? He was just a soldier, not a scientist, or someone who could understand the forces at play. This situation had escalated from a simple game into something far more complicated. And now he was part of something much bigger than he could have ever imagined. The air felt different now, heavy with tension, as though the entire universe was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. Jake turned to the blue-skinned alien who had been trying to help Zira moments before. The alien was staring at him with wide eyes, a mix of fear and awe in his gaze. "Do you know what's happening?" Jake asked, his voice hoarse. The blue-skinned alien shook his head slowly. "No, I don't. But I know this, the prophecy." His voice dropped as though he was speaking of something dangerous, something he was afraid to even say aloud. "We were warned long ago, long before we even knew of your species. But we didn't believe it. We didn't think humans would play a part in this." Jake's mind was spinning. "Prophecy? What do you mean?" The blue-skinned alien took a deep breath. "Zalanor, and many other races like us, believed we were the ones who would shape the future of the galaxy. We were the ones who held all the knowledge, the power, but there was a warning, something ancient. It said that there would be a race, small, insignificant at first, that would one day rise up and disrupt everything. We ignored it. We dismissed it." Jake frowned, trying to make sense of what the alien was saying. "And now, ... now it's happening?" The alien nodded slowly. "Yes. Your victory over Zero was not just a game, Jake. It was a signal. A sign that humanity's time has come. You've triggered something that even we can't fully understand. Glanced at Zira again. She still hadn't moved, her body frozen in place. But her crew, though confused, didn't seem to be completely helpless. One of the aliens, a taller figure with silver hair and piercing green eyes, stepped forward. Spoke in a low voice, almost as if he were trying to hide his fear. "What do you mean by the balance has shifted?" Jake asked, looking directly at the silver-haired alien. "What balance? What's going on?" The alien looked at Jake, his eyes wary, but he answered, "The balance of power in the galaxy, human. For centuries, we've believed that certain species were the rulers of the stars. That belief has kept things in order, kept the peace. But the prophecy said that there would come a time when the human race would break that order. And once they did, the galaxy would never be the same." Jake tried to process the words. Was he really part of something that could change the galaxy? Could humanity really have the power to alter the fate of so many species? Suddenly, the entire room shuddered again, this time more violently. The lights flickered, and the walls seemed to ripple. It felt as though the very foundation of the outpost was shaking beneath them. "We need to leave," the blue-skinned alien urged, his voice tight, with urgency. "We can't stay here. If the balance is truly shifting, it's dangerous for everyone, including you." Jake's heart raced. He didn't understand everything that was happening, but he knew one thing for sure. This wasn't just about him anymore. It wasn't even about Zira or her crew. Something far bigger was at play. "We need to help her," Jake said, looking at the frozen form of Zira. "She's in trouble." "I don't know how, but I can't just leave her like this." The alien crew hesitated. They didn't know what had caused Zira's condition, and they didn't know if she could be saved. But Jake's words seemed to stir something in them. It wasn't just about the mission anymore. It was about doing the right thing. One of the crew members, a younger alien with red markings across his face, stepped forward. "If she doesn't come back, it's over," he said quietly. "Her power is what holds our people together. If we lose, her will fall apart." Jake looked at the frozen Zira. She might have been arrogant and dismissive, but that didn't mean she deserved this fate. He wasn't sure how he could help her, but he had to try. "We have to figure out how to bring her back," Jake said, determination in his voice. The blue-skinned alien nodded slowly. "You're right. You may not understand it fully, but we know one thing. The power that caused Zero to freeze. It's connected to your species, and it's connected to what you did in the game." The tall alien with silver hair spoke again. "We'll help you, human. But you must understand, this is no longer about us. It's about the future of all life in the galaxy, and the future of your species." Jake felt a weight settle over him. He was no longer just a soldier, standing on the precipice of something huge. The fate of more than just his people was now tied to his actions. "What do we do next?" Jake asked, his voice steady despite the chaos swirling around him. The blue-skinned alien didn't hesitate. "We need to get to the core of this. It's the energy that caused Zero to freeze is ancient. It's been hidden for eons, but it's tied to the truth about your species. And only by unlocking that truth can we stop what's coming." Jake nodded, determination rising within him. Whatever the future held, he knew one thing for certain. He would do whatever it took to protect humanity and the galaxy. Together, they moved toward the center of the outpost. The lights flickered again, and the air seemed to hum with power. Whatever this was, it was just beginning. And Jake wasn't sure if anyone was ready for what was. Jake stood at the entrance of the control room, his mind racing. The alien crew had gathered around him, each of them still trying to make sense of what had happened. Zira remained motionless, her body frozen in place as if she were a statue. The whole situation was a mess, and Jake was stuck in the middle of it, unsure of what his next move should be. The blue-skinned alien looked at him, his face serious. "We need to find a way to restore Zira's neural functions," he said, his voice calm, but with an edge of urgency. "Without her, our entire mission will fail.
Oh.
She is the key to everything." Jake didn't fully understand what the blue-skinned alien meant, but it was clear that Zira's state was causing more than just confusion. Her crew was panicking, and their world seemed to be unraveling around them.
Ouch.
Jake had only wanted to prove that humans weren't to be underestimated. But now he had inadvertently triggered something far bigger. The taller alien with silver hair, who had been silent up until now, stepped forward. "You've done something none of us can explain, human," he said, his voice steady. "But there's no time to waste. If we don't act quickly, Zero might remain like this forever. We need to understand what happened to her and how we can reverse it." Jake felt a knot form in his stomach. He never meant for any of this to happen. All he had done was play a game. But in that moment, he realized it wasn't just about Zerit, it was about the galaxy and humanity's place within it. The more he thought about it, the more he felt like he had been caught in the middle of something much bigger than he could ever imagine. "We need to get to the central core," the blue-skinned alien continued, pointing toward a series of control panels in the back of the room. "It's where the energy field that froze Zero originated from. Only by understanding its source can we hope to fix what's happened." Jake nodded, his heart racing. He didn't know what was ahead, but he had no choice. He had to follow through. Zero might have been an arrogant alien, but no one deserved to be trapped in their own body. The crew moved quickly, their movements precise as they navigated the unfamiliar equipment. Jake felt out of place, but he did his best to stay focused. They needed to act fast. The shaking in the walls had stopped, but the air still felt thick, as though something was brewing beneath the surface. The silver-haired alien spoke again, his voice low. "We've encountered something like this before. A long time ago, the Zalanor tried to harness an ancient energy to control the galaxy. But it was too powerful. It caused a rift in the fabric of space, and many races were nearly wiped out in the process. Zero's race believed they had controlled the power, but it seems they were wrong." Jake frowned. "You're saying Zero and her people tried to control something they couldn't understand?" "Yes," the alien replied, nodding gravely. "The energy was hidden for a reason. It was never meant to be used by any one race. If it was, it would disrupt the natural order of the galaxy. But now, ... now it seems the time has come for it to awaken. And humanity is at the center of it." Jake felt his chest tighten. He didn't know what that meant, but it sounded like humanity was about to be dragged into something dangerous. Whatever this energy was, it was clear it wasn't something anyone could control. Not even the advanced alien races like the Zalanor. The blue-skinned alien tapped a few buttons on the control panel. A holographic map appeared, displaying several locations throughout the galaxy, many of them deep in uncharted space. The energy, whatever it was, seemed to be linked to these places. "This is where the energy source is coming from," the blue-skinned alien said. "And this is where we need to go. If we can locate the heart of this power, we may be able to stop it from spreading further." Jake looked at the map, his mind working overtime. The journey to these places wouldn't be easy. It would be dangerous, and it would likely involve facing enemies far more powerful than anything he'd ever encountered. But there was no turning back now. "We have no choice but to go," Jake said, his voice steady. "We need to find out what this is and stop it before it's too late." The crew members exchanged uneasy looks. The mission ahead was uncertain, and none of them knew what dangers lay in wait. But they all knew one thing. If they didn't act fast, the balance of power in the galaxy would be forever altered, and humanity would be caught in the middle. "We'll need a ship," the silver-haired alien said, his tone serious. "And we'll need your help, human. You've triggered this, and now you're the only one who might be able to stop it." Jake wasn't sure how he could help, but he knew he couldn't back down now. He wasn't just representing himself. He was representing humanity. And if what they were saying was true, humanity had a role to play in something that could change the galaxy forever. The blue-skinned alien led them to a small hangar beneath the outpost. Inside, an old, battered ship sat waiting. It wasn't much to look at, but it was functional. Jake's heart beat faster as he stepped inside. He didn't know where this journey would take him, but he knew one thing for sure. He couldn't back out now. "Get ready, human," the blue-skinned alien said, his voice calm but filled with purpose. "This is just the beginning. The galaxy is about to change, and we need to be prepared for what's coming. Jake nodded, his mind focused on the task ahead. The future of humanity, perhaps the entire galaxy, rested on their shoulders. There was no room for failure. The engines of the ship hummed to life, and Jake could feel the weight of the journey. Ahead, whatever was waiting for them out there, he would face it head-on, for humanity, for the galaxy, and for Zero, who had underestimated him and everyone. The ship hummed beneath Jake's feet as they made their way into deep space. The small crew of the Xalanor and Jake stood together in the control room, eyes focused on the star map in front of them. The mission was simple in theory: find the source of the energy that had caused Zero's freezing and stop it before it could grow any more powerful. But as they traveled deeper into uncharted space, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into something far worse than they had anticipated. The blue-skinned alien, whose name Jake still hadn't learned, stood at the front of the room, his fingers flying over the controls. The ship moved smoothly, its small form darting between stars, seemingly unaffected by the vastness of space around them. Zira, still frozen, sat in the back of the room. Her crew had decided to leave her in her current state, unsure of how to help her. The weight of responsibility rested on Jake's shoulders, but he couldn't ignore the uneasy feeling gnawing at him. He had triggered something ancient and dangerous, and now it seemed like humanity was at the center of it. Not much further until we reached the source, Jake asked, his voice cutting through the silence. The blue-skinned alien glanced over his shoulder. A few more hours. We are heading toward a region of space that has been untouched for millennia.
Ow.
Our records show nothing about it. That is why it was hidden. Its power was too great for any one race to control. Jake nodded, though he still didn't fully understand what the blue-skinned alien meant. But he didn't have time to dwell on it. Zira's condition was the most pressing issue at the moment, and Jake had no idea how they could restore her, or what kind of danger they would face once they reached the source of the energy. The silver-haired alien, who had remained quiet for most of the journey, finally spoke. The Xalanor have always believed that we were the galaxy's true rulers, he said, his voice soft, almost regretful. We controlled everything: knowledge, power, and influence. But we were wrong. Never realized how fragile that power was until now. It's why we've kept ourselves hidden, why we've avoided interference with other species. We thought we were beyond anyone else. Jake listened, his eyes flicking between the silver-haired alien and the blue-skinned one. They spoke of their race's arrogance, but it was clear that they were beginning to understand the reality of their situation. The galaxy was changing, and they had no idea what role humanity would play in it. But they could no longer ignore what was happening. The ancient energy had chosen a new course, and humanity was at the center of it. The ship shook, and Jake gripped the console in front of him, steadying himself. The blue-skinned alien let out a curse and quickly worked to stabilize the ship. It wasn't just the usual turbulence. Something was pulling them toward a different force, something powerful and unknown. The star map blinked on the screen, and a new location appeared. It was a place that wasn't supposed to exist. "We've reached it," the blue-skinned alien said, his voice tense. "We are directly above the source." Jake's heart raced. The energy they had been chasing was closer than ever. He wasn't sure what awaited them down below, but he knew they had no choice. They had to face it head-on. "Prepare yourselves," the silver-haired alien said quietly. "This will be dangerous. We don't know what we will find down there." The ship descended toward the planet below, and Jake felt his pulse quicken. Well, the world below was dark and uninhabited, with vast stretches of rocky terrain and jagged mountains that seemed to rise from the ground like sharp teeth. There were no signs of life, no civilization, just an eerie silence that filled the air. The blue-skinned alien pulled up a holographic display, showing their landing zone. "This is the heart of the energy. If we can locate the center of the power, we may be able to stop it, but we need to be careful. We don't know what kind of defenses or traps the energy may have left behind." Jake nodded, feeling the weight of their mission settle on his shoulders. This wasn't just about stopping a powerful energy source. It was about protecting humanity and ensuring that this ancient force didn't fall into the wrong hands. The ship touched down with a soft thud, and the crew quickly moved to prepare for the next step. Zira's body remained frozen, still a haunting reminder of what could happen if they failed. Jake felt a deep sense of responsibility. Zira's arrogance had gotten her into this mess, but now it was up to him and the crew to try and fix it. As the door of the ship opened, the cold air of the planet washed over them. The sky above was dark, but the stars seemed brighter here. Jake pulled on his helmet, preparing for whatever lay ahead. His mind raced with questions, but the answers would have to wait. They had to move quickly, and they had to be ready for anything. The crew gathered their weapons and gear, and they moved toward the entrance of the ancient structure. It was nothing like anything Jake had ever seen before. The walls were made of smooth, dark stone that seemed to shimmer in the dim light, as if the structure itself was alive. The energy they had come to find seemed to pulse from within the depths of the building. Calling them forward, Jake felt a strange pull in his chest as they moved deeper into the structure. The air grew heavier, and the temperature dropped. Breath fogged in the air as they continued down long, winding corridors. It was like walking through the bones of an ancient creature, something that had been dormant for centuries.
Now stirring awake.
They reached the heart of the structure, a massive chamber filled with swirling light and energy. It was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. The energy seemed to vibrate in the air, almost like it was alive, and Jake could feel the power emanating from it, pulling him closer. But something wasn't right. The room felt wrong and natural. The energy was too much for anyone to control, and Jake knew that they had to act fast. He turned to the crew, his voice low but steady. "Are you ready?" he asked. The blue-skinned alien nodded. "We have no choice. Now, we must stop this before it consumes everything." Jake stepped forward, ready to face the chamber was alive with energy. The air pulsed with a power Jake couldn't explain, a force that made every nerve in his body tingle with anticipation and fear. It was like standing at the edge of something vast and unknowable, and he knew that one wrong move could send everything spiraling out of control. The blue-skinned alien stepped forward, his eyes fixed on the swirling light in the center of the room. "This is it," he said quietly, as though speaking to himself. "This is where the power comes from." Jake's gaze followed the aliens, and his breath caught in his throat. The energy at the heart of the room was so intense, so overwhelming, that it almost seemed to take form. It swirled in colors that didn't belong to the normal spectrum, twisting and shifting like liquid fire. He could feel it pulling at him, urging him to come closer, but he resisted. It was dangerous. He had to remember why they were here. Zira's frozen body lay just behind them, her crew standing in a tense silence. They had made it this far, but now they were faced with the hardest challenge yet. How could they stop something that had the power to freeze a being as strong as Zira? And what did it have to do with humanity? The silver-haired alien turned to Jake, his face grim. "The energy here is ancient. It's tied to the very fabric of the galaxy. If we don't stop it, it will continue to grow, and nothing will be able to control it, not even the Zalanor." Jake swallowed hard.
How do we stop it?
He asked. The blue-skinned alien looked at him, his expression serious. "We have to disrupt the core of the energy. It's tied to an ancient mechanism, something that was built long ago to keep it in check. The Zalanor have always avoided it, believing it was too dangerous to tamper with. But now it's out of control, and only by turning it off can we prevent it from spreading." Jake took a step forward, the weight of their mission pressing down on him. "What happens if we fail?" The blue-skinned alien didn't answer immediately, and when he did, his voice was soft, almost sorrowful. "Then the galaxy will change, not just in a small way, but in a way we cannot undo. The energy will consume everything, planets, species, even time itself. And humanity's place in all of this will become irrelevant." Jake felt his chest tighten. The stakes were higher than he could have ever imagined. He had thought that this was just about proving humans were more than what the galaxy thought of them. But now he realized that the survival of everything, the balance of the entire galaxy, rested on what they did here. Without another word, the crew moved forward. They had to reach the heart of the power and destroy the core. The blue-skinned alien took out a small device from his belt, kind of key that would allow them to access the control systems hidden deep inside the chamber. They had been warned that it wouldn't be easy, that there would be defenses. But they had no choice. The chamber was eerily silent as they moved deeper, the energy swirling around them, pulsing like the heartbeat of the planet itself. Jake's hands were sweaty, his mind racing. The power here was too much, too strange. But it was clear now humanity had a part to play in this, whether they were ready for it or not. As they neared the center of the chamber, the energy began to react. The swirling light intensified, brighter and more unstable, like the pressure building, like the air itself was thickening. And then, just as they were about to reach the core, something unexpected happened. A loud crack echoed through the room, and the light flared. The chamber seemed to ripple, as though the very walls were folding in on themselves. Jake staggered back, instinctively reaching for the nearest support, but the blue-skinned alien held out his hand to stop him. "It's happening," the alien said, his voice tense. "The core is reacting to the intrusion. We've awakened it, and now it's trying to fight back." Jake's heart raced. The light in the chamber became blinding, and the energy started to crackle in the air. The ground beneath them trembled, as though the entire structure was coming to life, trying to throw them off. Jake's pulse quickened as he saw flashes of light streak through the air like lightning, heading straight for them. "Move." The blue-skinned alien shouted. The crew scattered, each of them diving for cover as bolts of raw energy shot across the room. Jake ducked behind a pillar, his breath shallow, his heart hammering in his chest. He could see the blue-skinned alien working quickly at the control panel, but the energy around them was growing more unstable by the second. "What's happening?" Jake called out. "Is there a way to stop it?" The silver-haired alien, who had taken cover beside him, nodded grimly. "We can't stop it completely," he said, "but we can slow it down. If we overload the core, it will release the energy in a controlled way, at least long enough to buy us time. Then let's do it," Jake said, determination flooding his chest. "We don't have much time." The blue-skinned alien's voice came over the comms. "Urgent. I'm starting the overload sequence now. Brace yourselves." Jake could feel the pressure building, the energy in the air growing more intense by the second. The chamber seemed to pulse like a living thing, the walls vibrating with power. They had to act fast, or they would be consumed by the very force they were trying to stop. A loud roar filled the chamber as the core began to overheat. Jake clutched his helmet, his entire body tense as the room around them seemed to explode. With light, for a moment, everything went white, and then, as suddenly as it had begun, everything stopped. The light flickered and died, and the room grew quiet once more. The energy had been released, but the balance had been restored. The swirling power at the center of the chamber was gone, its intensity fading into nothingness. Jake lowered his helmet, his body still shaking from the blast. They had done it. They had stopped the energy, at least for now. The crew slowly began to stand up, dusting themselves off. Zira's frozen body was still behind them, but now there was hope. The room was silent except for the sound of their breathing. The blue-skinned alien turned to Jake, his expression full of gratitude. "We did it," he said quietly. "But this isn't over. The energy will continue to pull at the galaxy. But for now, we have bought ourselves some time." Jake nodded, feeling the weight of everything they had just accomplished. It wasn't over. But at least they had won this battle, and humanity's role in the galaxy was no longer in question.